My wife Sarah stood in our kitchen last Tuesday night, tears streaming down her face, screaming the words that would change everything. You never fight for me, Marcus. You just let everyone walk all over us. What she didn't know was that I had been fighting a battle she couldn't see, fighting against the life we'd built together. And her words that night? They weren't the beginning of our problems. They were the final push I needed to stop fighting for us and start fighting for something else entirely. My freedom. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The argument started over something ridiculous. Our neighbor Jim Patterson had parked his truck in our driveway again, blocking Sarah's car for the third time that month. She came home from her book club meeting, saw the truck, and marched straight into our house with fire in her eyes. "Did you say anything to him?" she demanded, throwing her purse onto the kitchen counter. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing quarterly reports for my accounting firm. I left him a note. Her voice cracked with disbelief. "Marcus, he's been doing this for weeks. A note isn't going to solve anything." I closed the laptop and rubbed my temples. After 14 years of marriage, I knew that tone. Sarah wasn't just upset about the parking situation. This was about something deeper, something that had been building between us for months. "What do you want me to do, Sarah? Go over there and start a fight with the guy?" "Yes," she shouted. "For once in your life, I want you to stand up for your family. I want you to show some backbone." The word backbone hit me like a slap. I stood up slowly, feeling something shift inside my chest. "Backbone." "You heard me." She crossed her arms, her brown eyes blazing. "When was the last time you fought for anything, Marcus? When was the last time you showed any passion about our life together?" I stared at her, really looked at her, and realized something terrifying. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt passionate about anything. Not about our marriage, not about our house in suburban Denver, not about the carefully planned life we constructed together. "I fight for us every day," I said quietly. "No, you don't." Her voice broke. "You go through the motions. You pay the bills, you mow the lawn, you show up to family dinners. But you don't fight for us. You don't fight for me." That's when the tears started, and that's when she said the words that would haunt me for weeks afterward. "You never fight for me, Marcus. You just let everyone walk all over us." I walked outside without saying another word. Jim's truck was still there, its red paint gleaming under our porch light. For a moment, I considered knocking on his door, demanding he move it, maybe even raising my voice. But what would that prove? That I could get angry about a parking space? That I could manufacture passion over something that didn't really matter? Instead, I got in my Honda Civic, backed carefully around his truck, and drove to the 24-hour diner on Colfax Avenue. The place was nearly empty, except for a trucker nursing black coffee and a woman my age reading a paperback novel. I ordered coffee and sat in a booth by the window, watching late-night traffic crawl past. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh white light. That's where I met Elena Rodriguez. She was the waitress who refilled my cup without being asked, who noticed I'd been sitting there for 2 hours without ordering food. Around midnight, during a lull in customers, she slid into the booth across from me. "Rough night?" she asked. I looked up at her. She had shoulder-length black hair and knowing eyes, the kind of face that suggested she'd heard every story worth telling. "My wife thinks I don't fight for her," I said, surprising myself with honesty. Elena poured herself coffee from the pot she'd brought over. "Do you?" I thought I did. "I work 60-hour weeks to pay for the house she wanted. I drive her car to the shop when it breaks down. I listen to her complain about her sister every Sunday after family dinner." "That's not fighting for her," Elena said. "That's maintaining." The word hit me like a physical blow. Maintaining. That's exactly what I'd been doing for the past 5 years. Maybe longer. "I used to want to be a musician," I heard myself saying. "Before I met Sarah, I played guitar in a band called Midnight Fiction. We weren't great, but we had something. We played dive bars in Boulder, had a following. I wrote songs. What happened?" "Sarah happened. Not her fault," I added quickly. "She needed stability, security. Her first husband left her with debt and a broken heart. When we got together, she was working 2 jobs just to keep her apartment. So I got serious, went back to school for accounting, got a good job, became the man she needed. Elena studied my face. But not the man you needed. I'd never heard it put that way before, but she was right. I'd spent 14 years becoming someone else, someone safer, someone more dependable. I'd buried the part of me that used to stay up until 3 in the morning writing lyrics, the part that believed music could change the world. She wants me to fight for her, I said. But I don't know how to fight for someone when I've forgotten how to fight for myself. Elena refilled our cups again. Maybe that's the problem. I left the diner at 2 in the morning with Elena's number written on a napkin and a strange lightness in my chest. For the first time in years, I'd talked to someone who didn't need me to be anything other than who I was in that moment. When I got home, Sarah was asleep. I sat in my home office, surrounded by tax documents and financial reports, and pulled out my old acoustic guitar. My fingers were clumsy on the strings after years of neglect, but muscle memory kicked in. I played quietly, barely above a whisper, trying not to wake her. The next morning, Sarah acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed my cheek, and asked if I'd talk to Jim about his truck. "I'll handle it today," I lied. But instead of confronting Jim, I called Elena during my lunch break. We met at a small cafe in the Arts District, a place I used to frequent when I was younger. She told me about her life, the divorce, the teenage son she was raising alone, the poetry she wrote between shifts at the diner. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," I told her. "About fighting for myself. And I realized I don't even know what that looks like anymore." Elena reached across the table and touched my hand. It was a simple gesture, but it sent electricity through my entire body. When was the last time Sarah had touched me like that? When was the last time anyone had looked at me and seen the person I used to be instead of the person I'd become? It starts with remembering who you were before you became who you thought you needed to be, she said. That night, I tried to talk to Sarah about us, about the distance that had grown between us, about the person I used to be. But she wasn't interested in having that conversation. "I don't want to hear about the past, Marcus," she said, not looking up from her iPad. "I want to know that you're going to start standing up for our future. Our future." The phrase felt hollow. What future? More years of suburban routine? More family dinners with her judgmental sister? More nights spent in separate rooms, pretending everything was fine? Over the next few weeks, I started meeting Elena regularly. Not for anything physical, just to talk, to remember what it felt like to be seen, to be understood. She encouraged me to bring my guitar to the cafe, to play the songs I'd written years ago. The customers started listening, requesting songs, leaving tips in my guitar case. "You're different when you play," Eleanor told me one evening. "You become yourself again." She was right. Music had always been my way of fighting, my way of expressing the parts of myself that couldn't be contained in spreadsheets and tax forms. But somewhere along the way, I'd let that fighter die. Sarah noticed the change too, but not in the way I'd hoped. "You've been acting strange lately," she said one morning over breakfast. Distracted. I could have told her about Elena, about the music, about the part of myself I was slowly excavating from years of careful burial. Instead, I said nothing. "Are you having an affair?" The question came out flat, matter-of-fact. "No," I said, which was technically true. Elena and I had never crossed that line, though the temptation was growing stronger every day. "Then what's going on with you?" I looked at my wife across our kitchen table, this woman I'd loved for 14 years, and realized I didn't know how to explain it to her. How could I tell her that fighting for her had meant losing myself? How could I explain that her demand for me to show backbone had awakened something I'd thought was dead? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "I'm trying to figure some things out," I said finally. "Figure out what?" "Who I am, who I want to be." Sarah set down her coffee cup with more force than necessary. "You're my husband, Marcus. You're a successful accountant with a good practice and a nice house. What else do you need to figure out? Everything, I thought. But I didn't say it. 3 weeks after that conversation at breakfast, everything changed in ways I never saw coming. Sarah's sister, Rebecca, showed up unannounced on a Thursday evening, dragging her latest drama through our front door like a tornado. She'd been fired from another job and needed money to cover her rent. This was the 3rd time in 8 months. Family helps family, Sarah announced. Already reaching for her checkbook, I watched from the kitchen doorway as Rebecca performed her usual routine. Tears, apologies, promises that this time would be different. She'd been doing this dance since I'd known her, and Sarah fell for it every single time. We can't keep doing this, I said quietly, when Rebecca finally left with $800 of our money. Sarah turned on me with fury I'd rarely seen. Excuse me? Your sister. She's using you, Sarah, using us. She's family, Marcus. She's going through a rough patch. She's been going through a rough patch for 5 years. When does it stop? When she gets back on her feet. And if she never does. Sarah's face hardened. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You won't fight Jim Patterson over a parking space, but you'll attack my sister when she needs help. You pick your battles, don't you? You save your fighting for the people who can't fight back. Her words stung because there was truth in them. But not the truth, she thought. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called in sick to work and drove to Red Rocks Amphitheater. I parked in the empty lot and hiked up to the rocks, my guitar case slung over my shoulder. The November air was crisp and thin, and Denver spread out below me like a promise I'd forgotten I'd made to myself. I found a secluded spot between 2 massive sandstone formations and pulled out my guitar. I played for 3 hours straight. Old songs, new songs, fragments of melodies that had been buried under years of routine. My fingers remembered chords I thought I'd forgotten. My voice, rusty from disuse, found its range again. When I finally stopped, I wasn't alone. A man about my age sat on a nearby rock, listening. He had long grey hair tied back in a ponytail and wore a denim jacket covered in band patches. "Don't stop on my account," he said. "You've got something there?" "Thanks. I'm just messing around." "No, you're not." He stood and walked over. "I'm Danny Cortez. I run a studio in Golden. Been in the music business for 25 years, and I know the real thing when I hear it." He handed me a business card. "You write those songs yourself?" "Most of them. Some are old, from when I used to play in bands." "What stopped you?" The question everyone kept asking. What stopped me from being myself? "Life," I said. "Marriage, responsibilities," Danny nodded. "I hear that a lot. But here's the thing. Responsibility to other people doesn't have to mean betraying yourself. Sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is be authentic." He packed up his own guitar, which I hadn't noticed before. "I'm putting together a project. Older guys who never got their shot, or guys who walked away and want to come back. We're calling it Second Wind. No pressure, no bullshit record deals. Just pure music. I appreciate it, but I don't think, feel. You want this. I can see it in how you play. The question is, are you brave enough to want it out loud?" That evening, Sarah was waiting for me in the living room when I got home. She'd clearly been crying. "Jim Patterson called me at work today," she said. My stomach dropped. "What did he say?" "He said you came by his house last night around 11 p.m., drunk, and told him if he ever parked in our driveway again, you'd have his truck towed and sue him for harassment." I stared at her. "That's not what happened." "Then what did happen?" "I wasn't drunk. I had 2 beers at Murphy's pub after meeting with—" I stopped myself before mentioning Danny. "I did talk to Jim. I was polite, but firm. I told him the parking situation needed to stop. He says you were aggressive, threatening. I was direct." "There's a difference." Sarah studied my face. "Who were you meeting at Murphy's?" The lie came so easily it scared me. "Client. Dave Morrison from Morrison Construction. We were discussing his tax situation." "At a bar?" "He suggested it. Some people prefer informal meetings." She seemed to accept this, but I could see her filing it away, adding it to whatever mental list she was keeping of my recent behavior. "Jim said you were a different person, angrier." Maybe I was tired of being walked on. "This isn't you." Marcus, how do you know what is me? The words came out sharper than I intended. And when did you last ask what I wanted? What I dreamed about? When did you last wonder if I was happy? You seemed happy. I seemed comfortable. There's a difference. That weekend, I met Elena at a small music venue in downtown Denver. Danny's band, a group of musicians in their 40s and 50s, was playing an acoustic set. The place was packed with people who looked like they'd lived full lives, who'd made choices and lived with consequences. Elena held my hand during the performance, and for the first time in months, I felt connected to something larger than my daily routine. You should be up there, she whispered during a particularly soulful song. Maybe someday. Why not now? After the show, Danny approached our table. Marcus, glad you came. What did you think? Incredible. You guys have something special. We have an opening. Our rhythm guitarist just moved to Portland. You interested? Elena squeezed my hand. The room seemed to hold its breath. I need some time to think about it, I said. Don't think too long. Music waits for no one. On the drive home, Elena was quiet. Finally, she spoke. Are you going to do it? I don't know. It's complicated. Or maybe you're making it complicated. Sarah would never understand. Have you given her the chance? You don't know her like I do. Elena pulled her car into my driveway and turned off the engine. Marcus, I care about you, more than I probably should. But I won't be the reason you stay trapped in a life that's killing you slowly. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you're not willing to fight for what you want, then maybe you don't really want it. She was right, and we both knew it. The next morning, Sarah confronted me about the concert. Mrs. Henderson saw you downtown Friday night. With a woman. At some music venue. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. Elena Rodriguez. She's a friend. A friend? Yes, we met at the diner on Colfax. She's going through a divorce, needed someone to talk to. And you needed to comfort her at a concert. It wasn't like that. She mentioned the band. I was curious about the local music scene. Since when are you interested in the local music scene? Since I remembered that music used to matter to me. Sarah sat down heavily at the kitchen table. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I've always been. I just stopped hiding parts of myself. The parts that matter to me, apparently. Sarah, when did we stop talking about dreams? When did we stop wondering what we wanted our lives to look like? When we grew up, Marcus. When we decided to build something stable together. Stable and dead are two different things. She looked at me with something that might have been fear. Are you leaving me? The question hung in the air between us. A month ago, I would have rushed to reassure her, to promise that nothing would change. But sitting there in our kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built together, I realized I didn't know the answer anymore. I don't want to leave you, I said carefully. But I can't keep leaving myself. What does that even mean? It means I'm tired of being the man you think you need, instead of the man I actually am. And who is that? I looked at my wife of 14 years and realized she genuinely didn't know. Maybe she'd never known. I guess we're both about to find out. The next 2 weeks passed like we were walking on glass. Sarah and I moved around each other carefully, speaking only about necessary things. Bills, schedules, whose turn it was to take out the trash. The silence between us grew heavier each day. Then Danny called. We've got a gig, he said. Nothing fancy. Open mic night at the Bluebird Theater next Friday. 2 songs acoustic. You in? My mouth went dry. The Bluebird Theater. I dreamed about playing there when I was 25 and thought the world owed me something. I haven't performed in front of people in over a decade. Riding a bike, Marcus. Your fingers remember, your voice remembers. Question is, does your heart remember? I looked around my home office, at the tax documents stacked neatly on my desk, at the framed photo of Sarah and me from our wedding day. We looked so young, so certain about everything. Yes, I heard myself say. I'm in. Good. We practice tomorrow night at my studio. 7 sharp. I hung up and immediately called Elena. I did it, I said. I'm playing the Bluebird next Friday. Her joy came through the phone like sunlight. Marcus, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. Will you come? Try and stop me. That evening at dinner, I tried to tell Sarah about the performance. I'd rehearsed the conversation in my head, planned to frame it as a one-time thing, a chance to close a chapter from my past, but she cut me off before I could finish. "Rebecca's in the hospital," she said, looking up from her salad. "What happened?" "Anxiety attack. At least that's what they're calling it. She lost another job today. Apparently she was stealing from the register at the restaurant." I set down my fork. "Sarah, don't you dare say I told you so. I wasn't going to. She needs help, Marcus. Real help. Therapy, maybe rehab. I want to pay for it." "How much?" "The program she wants is $12,000. 60 days residential. $12,000 we don't have. We have savings. That's our emergency fund. This is an emergency." I stared at my wife. This woman who would bankrupt us for a sister who'd been lying and stealing and manipulating her for years, and felt something break open inside my chest. "No," I said quietly. "What?" I said no. "We're not paying for Rebecca's rehab." Sarah's face went white. "You can't be serious. She's stolen from us 3 times that we know about. Remember when your jewelry went missing last Christmas? Remember when she borrowed your credit card? She's been using you for years, and you keep enabling her. She's sick, Marcus. Maybe, but that doesn't make it our responsibility to fix her. She's family. And what am I?"
"What are we?"
I stood up from the table. "You'll fight anyone who questions giving Rebecca money, but when I need something, when I need to remember who I am, suddenly I'm being selfish. That's completely different, is it? You asked me to fight for you, Sarah, but you won't fight for me. You won't even listen to me. What are you talking about?" I got offered a chance to play music again. Real music, with real musicians. I tried to tell you about it, but all you care about is Rebecca's latest crisis. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Music? This is about your midlife crisis hobby." "It's not a hobby. It's who I am. You're an accountant, Marcus. That's who you are. That's who pays for this house, for the life we've built together. I'm also a songwriter. I'm also a musician. I'm also a man who used to dream about something bigger than tax returns and suburban dinner parties. Dreams don't pay mortgages. Some dreams do. You've just decided mine aren't worth the risk." Sarah stood up so fast her chair tipped over. "Risk? You want to talk about risk? The risk is you throwing away everything we've worked for to chase some fantasy about being a rock star at 43. I'm not trying to be a rock star. I'm trying to be myself. Yourself doesn't pay our bills. Myself wrote songs that mattered to people. Myself had passion and fire and reasons to get up in the morning beyond checking off items on a to-do list. We stared at each other across our dining room table, breathing hard, and I realized this was the first real fight we'd had in years. The first time either of us had raised our voices about something that actually mattered. "I'm playing at the Bluebird Theatre next Friday," I said. 2 songs. That's it. And then what?" "I don't know. You don't know?" Her voice cracked. "Marcus, we have a life together. We have commitments. We have a mortgage and car payments, and I've been dying a little more each year, maintaining all of it." She started crying then. Not the angry tears from our fight about Jim Patterson, but deep, scared sobs. "I don't know how to be married to someone who wants to be someone else," she whispered. "I don't know how to be married to someone who won't let me be who I really am." That night, I slept in the guest room for the first time in our marriage. The next evening, I drove to Danny's studio in Golden. It was a converted warehouse space with exposed brick walls covered in concert posters and gold records from bands I'd never heard of but respected immediately. The other musicians were already there. Tommy Valdez on bass, a soft-spoken guy who'd been in a touring band until his kids came along, and Rick Chen on drums, who'd given up music to become a software engineer but never stopped missing it. "Gentlemen," Danny announced, "meet our new rhythm guitarist, Marcus Wade." We spent 3 hours working through 2 songs I'd written 15 years ago but had never performed publicly. Denver Nights and Second Chances, songs about lost love and finding yourself when you thought it was too late. By the end of practice, something magical had happened. We weren't 4 middle-aged guys pretending to be musicians. We were musicians who happened to be middle-aged guys. You feel that? Danny asked as we packed up our equipment. Feel what? That electricity. That's what you've been missing. That's what you've been fighting to get back to. He was right. For 3 hours, I'd been completely present, completely myself. No thoughts about taxes or mortgages or Sarah's expectations. Just music, pure and honest and alive. On Thursday night, Sarah made one last attempt to stop me. "Don't go tomorrow," she said, as we got ready for bed in our separate rooms. "I have to." "No, you don't. You can call Danny, tell him you changed your mind. We can pretend this whole thing never happened. And then what? We go back to the way things were?" Yes. Sarah, the way things were, was killing me, but we were stable. We were existing. There's a difference. She stood in the doorway of the guest room, wearing the blue nightgown I'd bought her for her birthday 3 years ago. "If you do this," she said quietly, "everything changes. Everything's already changed. This just makes it official. I love you, Marcus. The you that you are now, the you that I married, the me that you married died somewhere along the way. I'm trying to resurrect him. What if I can't love the person you become?" I looked at my wife of 14 years, this woman who'd asked me to fight for her, who was now asking me not to fight for myself. Then I guess we'll both have our answer. Friday arrived gray and cold, snow threatening in the Denver sky. I spent the day at work, trying to focus on client files, but my hands kept trembling. Twice I almost called Danny to cancel. At 5 p.m., I packed my guitar and drove home to change clothes. Sarah was waiting in the living room. "Last chance," she said. I kissed her forehead, tasting tears. "I know. Will you come home tonight?" The question broke my heart, because I realized I didn't know the answer. I didn't know what version of myself would walk off that stage, or what he would want, or where he would go. "I love you," I said instead of answering. "That's not what I asked." I picked up my guitar case and walked to the door. "Marcus?" I turned back, break a leg. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. A small, sad smile, but real. I drove toward downtown Denver and my date with the Bluebird Theater, not knowing that the man who walked into that venue would be completely different from the one who walked out. The Bluebird Theater looked smaller than I remembered, but the energy hit me the moment I walked through the doors. The smell of beer and old wood, the murmur of conversations, the electric anticipation that filled every music venue before showtime. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed it. Danny found me near the sound booth, tuning my guitar with shaking hands. "You look like you're about to throw up," he said. "I might." "Good. Means it matters to you." Elena appeared beside us, and my heart jumped. She wore a simple black dress and had her hair down. But more than that, she was looking at me like I was already the person I was trying to become. "You made it," I said. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." She squeezed my arm. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified, excited, like I'm about to jump off a cliff." "Maybe you are," Danny said. "The question is, you gonna fly or fall?" The open mic was running behind schedule. I watched a succession of performers take the small stage. A college girl with a ukulele singing about heartbreak. An older man doing spoken-word poetry about Vietnam. A punk rock trio that made the windows rattle. Each act got 5 to 7 minutes, scattered applause. And the hook if they went over time. Second wind. "You're up in 10, the stage manager announced. My hands went numb. Tommy and Rick appeared on either side of me, carrying their instruments. Tommy clapped my shoulder. "Remember what we talked about yesterday," he said. "Don't perform for the crowd. Perform for yourself. Let them watch you be authentic. Easy for you to say. You've been doing this longer." "No," Rick interrupted. "I haven't touched drums in 8 years before last week. I spent every practice session convinced I'd forgotten how to keep time. But you know what I realized during our run-through yesterday?" "What?" "The music doesn't forget you, even when you think you've forgotten it." We took the stage to polite applause from maybe 40 people. The lights were brighter than I'd expected, making it hard to see faces in the audience. My acoustic guitar felt foreign in my hands, despite weeks of practice. Danny stepped to the microphone. "Good evening, Bluebird. We're Second Wind, and we're here to prove that dreams don't have expiration dates." He glanced back at me. This first song is called Denver Nights and was written by our rhythm guitarist Marcus Wade, the introduction to a song I'd written 15 years ago but had never shared with anyone except Elena. I closed my eyes and found the opening chord. The first note rang out clean and true, and something shifted inside me. My hands stopped shaking, my breathing steadied. The years fell away, and I was 28 again, sitting in my apartment at 2 a.m., trying to capture the feeling of driving through downtown Denver after a fight with a girlfriend whose name I couldn't even remember now. I opened my eyes and sang, "These Denver nights stretch long and wide. Neon promises that never die. I'm driving circles through my mind, looking for something I'll never find." By the second verse, I wasn't performing anymore. I was just being. The Marcus who paid bills and attended dinner parties had disappeared, replaced by the Marcus who believed music could save your soul if you let it. The audience had gone quiet. Not polite quiet, but listening quiet. Real quiet. When we finished Denver Nights, the applause was different, warmer. I spotted Elena in the crowd, tears streaming down her face, clapping like her life depended on it. "Thank you," Danny said into the microphone. This next song is also from Marcus. It's called Second Chances. I'd written Second Chances during my divorce from my first girlfriend, back when I thought heartbreak was the worst thing that could happen to you. Now, 15 years later, I understood that heartbreak wasn't the end of anything. It was just the beginning of knowing what you really needed. The song started with just my guitar and voice, 43, and starting over. Thought my story was already told, but these hands still remember music. And this heart ain't done being bold. By the chorus, the whole band had joined in, and something magical happened. The audience started swaying. A few people near the front closed their eyes and let the music wash over them. Others held up their phones, not to record, but to provide light, like we were around a campfire sharing something sacred. When we finished, the silence lasted 3 full seconds before the applause erupted. Real applause. Standing ovation applause. The kind that makes you believe in yourself again. Second wind, everybody. Danny shouted over the noise. Marcus Wade on guitar and vocals. I stood there, sweat-soaked and shaking, looking out at 40 strangers who had just heard my soul laid bare, and felt more alive than I had in years, backstage, which was really just a narrow hallway behind the main room. Elena found me immediately. "Marcus," she said, and then couldn't seem to find words. She just threw her arms around me and held on. "How was it?" I asked, though I already knew from the way she was trembling. It was like watching someone wake up from a 15-year coma. Danny appeared with a beer for each of us. "That," he said, "is why we do this. That's what it feels like to remember who you are. I can't believe we actually did it. Believe it. And there's more where that came from." He pulled out his phone. "Check this out." The screen showed a video someone had posted to Instagram. Our performance of Second Chances, shot from the audience. The views were already climbing into the hundreds. Someone else posted it to TikTok, Danny continued, scrolling through his notifications. "And Facebook. Marcus, you might want to check your social media. When you get home, the word hit me like cold water. Sarah, I've been so caught up in the rush of performing that I'd forgotten about everything waiting for me. Outside this building, I should go, I said. Elena's face fell. Already? I need to talk to Sarah. She deserves to know how this went. Does she? Elena asked quietly. Does she really want to know, or does she want you to come home defeated so she can comfort you back into the life she prefers? The question stung because I wasn't sure of the answer. I drove home through empty Denver streets, my guitar case in the back seat, like evidence of a crime I wasn't sure I'd committed. The house was dark, except for one light in the kitchen window. Sarah was sitting at the table with a cup of tea, still wearing the clothes she'd had on when I left. She looked up when I walked in, studying my face. How did it go? She asked. Good, really good, I can tell. What do you mean? You look different, younger. Like you used to look when you were excited about something. I sat down across from her. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I know what you're going to tell me, do you? You're leaving me. The words hung in the air between us. I'd expected her to be angry, to fight, to demand explanations. Instead, she just looked tired. "I don't know," I said honestly. "That's not much better. What I do know is that I can't go back to the way things were. I can't pretend that tonight didn't happen, that I didn't remember what it feels like to be myself." Sarah sipped her tea. "Rebecca called while you were gone. What did she want?" "To thank me for agreeing to pay for her rehab." "You agreed?" "I transferred the money from our savings account an hour ago." I stared at her. "Without talking to me?" "You made it clear you wouldn't support the decision. So I made it myself. Sarah, that was our emergency fund. $12,000. I know what it was. We agreed we wouldn't make major financial decisions without discussing them. Like you discussed joining a band with me? Like you discussed tonight's performance. She had me there. This is different." I said. "How?" "Because your sister is going to take that money and waste it, and in 6 months she'll be back asking for more." "Maybe. Or maybe this time she'll get clean. And if she doesn't, then at least I'll know I tried to save her." I looked at my wife across our kitchen table and realized we were talking about two completely different things. She was talking about saving her sister. I was talking about saving myself. "I met someone," I said. Sarah's teacup stopped halfway to her lips. "What?" "Her name is Elena. We haven't. Nothing physical has happened. But she sees me, Sarah. She sees who I really am, and she doesn't want me to change it." Sarah set down her cup carefully. "Are you in love with her?" "I don't know. Maybe. What I know is that when I'm with her, I remember what it feels like to be excited about tomorrow. And when you're with me?" I wanted to lie, to soften it, but after tonight, I didn't have any lies left in me. "When I'm with you, I feel like I'm slowly disappearing." She started crying then, but quietly, like she'd been expecting this conversation for months. 14 years, Marcus. "I know, 14 years. And you're going to throw it all away for some woman you met at a diner and a pipe dream about being a musician." "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm trying to save what's left of me." "What about what's left of us?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't think there's anything left to save." The silence stretched between us until Sarah finally spoke. "So what now?" she asked, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't know. You keep saying that. You don't know if you're leaving. You don't know if you love her. You don't know what happens next. When did you become someone who doesn't know anything?" The question hit deeper than she probably intended. "Maybe I've been pretending to know things for so long that I forgot what certainty actually feels like." Sarah stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at our backyard where we'd hosted dozens of barbecues and birthday parties over the years. "I keep thinking about our wedding day," she said. "Do you remember what you told me during our first dance?" I did remember. I said I'd never let you down. You promised you'd always fight for us, that we'd face everything together. Sarah, let me finish. She turned back to face me. I spent 14 years believing that promise. When my mother got sick, when I lost the baby, when my father died, you were there. You fought for us then. The mention of the miscarriage we'd had 7 years ago hit like a physical blow. We'd never really talked about it afterward, just moved forward like it hadn't happened. That was different, I said quietly. How? Those were things that happened to us. This is about who I am, and who you are isn't compatible with being married to me. I looked at this woman I'd shared a life with for 14 years and tried to find words for something I'd only just begun to understand myself. The person I became to make you feel safe. That person is suffocating me. And the person I really am is someone you've never wanted to know. You don't know what I want. Yes, I do. You want security, predictability, a husband who comes home at 6 p.m. and doesn't rock the boat. You want someone who fights your battles but never questions your decisions. You want a partner, not a person. Sarah's face crumpled. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you asked me what I dreamed about? When was the last time you wondered if I was happy being an accountant? When was the last time you saw me as anything other than the man who pays the bills and fixes what's broken? You seemed content. It seemed convenient. She sat back down, looking older than her 41 years. I asked you to fight for me, and you're using it as an excuse to leave. I'm not leaving to hurt you, Sarah. I'm leaving to save myself. From what? From becoming someone I can't recognize in the mirror. The next morning, I called in sick to work again and spent 3 hours at our bank disentangling our finances. Sarah had already moved the $12,000 to Rebecca, but there was enough left for both of us to start over if we were careful. I also called a lawyer. How long have you been married? Jennifer Walsh asked during our consultation. 14 years. Children? No. Significant assets? A house, 2 cars? Some savings that my wife just depleted for her sister's rehab program. Jennifer made notes on her legal pad. Grounds for divorce? Irreconcilable differences. Adultery. Not technically, but I've been emotionally involved with someone else. How involved? I thought about Elena, about the conversations that had awakened parts of myself I'd forgotten existed, about the way she looked at me during the performance. Involved enough that my marriage can't survive it. Mr. Wade, I have to ask, are you certain about this? Divorce is expensive and permanent. Have you considered counseling? We've been in counseling for 3 years. We just didn't realize it. My wife was the therapist, and her treatment plan was to make me disappear. That afternoon, Danny called with news that changed everything. You need to sit down for this, he said. I'm already sitting. Remember that video someone posted from last night? It's gone viral. Second Chances has been viewed over 50,000 times since this morning. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means 3 different record labels have called me today. 2 music venues in Boulder want to book us. And there's a producer from Nashville who wants to talk about your songwriting. Danny, I can't. Marcus, shut up and listen. This is happening whether you're ready or not. Question is, are you going to run from it like you've been running from everything else in your life? That evening, I met Elena at the same cafe where we'd first talked about music and dreams. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept. I saw the videos, she said. You're all over social media. It's crazy. It's wonderful. You deserve this, do I? Marcus, stop. You've spent so long believing you don't deserve good things that you can't recognize them when they happen. I told her about the divorce lawyer, about the record labels, about Sarah's reaction to everything. How do you feel? She asked. Terrified, guilty, free. I paused. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. Are you in love with me, or are you in love with the idea of saving someone? She was quiet for a long moment. Both, maybe. But mostly I'm in love with watching you become yourself again. And if becoming myself means I'm not the man you think I am, then I guess we'll both find out who you really are. 2 weeks later, I moved out of the house Sarah and I had shared for 8 years. She helped me pack, which felt surreal and heartbreaking and somehow right. Where will you go? She asked as I loaded my guitar into my Honda. Danny has a spare room above his studio, just until I figure things out. And Elena? She's taking things slow with her divorce. We're taking things slow with us. Sarah handed me a box of my books. I want you to know something. What? I don't understand what you're doing. I think you're making a terrible mistake. But watching you play the other night, she trailed off. What about it? You looked like the man I fell in love with 15 years ago. Before life made both of us afraid of everything. I set down the box and hugged her. She felt small in my arms, fragile in a way I'd never noticed before. I'm sorry I couldn't be who you needed, I said. I'm sorry I never asked who you needed to be. 6 months later, Second Wind signed with an independent label in Nashville. Our first album, featuring Denver Nights and Second Chances, sold 12,000 copies in the first month, not enough to quit our day jobs, but enough to prove that music could be more than a hobby. Elena and I moved in together in a small house near downtown Denver. She started a poetry blog that gained a following. I kept doing taxes part-time and writing songs the rest of the time. Sarah and I finalized our divorce in March. She kept the house, I kept my freedom, and we both kept our dignity. Rebecca lasted 6 weeks in rehab before disappearing with another patient and $3,000 from the facility's petty cash fund. The last time I saw my ex-wife was at the grocery store. She was buying ice cream and wine, the kind of impulsive purchase she'd never made when we were married. "How are you?" I asked. "Different," she said. "Lonelier." "But different. Good different or bad different?" "I don't know yet." "How's the music?" "Good. We're touring Colorado this summer. Nothing fancy, but we're playing for people who want to hear us. I'm glad. Are you?" She smiled, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married, the one who'd gotten buried under years of routine and expectations. "Yes," she said. "I really am. I drove home to Eleanor, to a life that fit me like my own skin, and realized something I'd never understood before. Fighting for someone else's version of happiness will always leave you defeated. But fighting for your own authenticity, that's a battle you can actually win." My wife had complained that I never fought for her. She was right. But she was also wrong about what the fight should have been about. The real fight wasn't about protecting what we had. It was about discovering what we could become. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop being the person they think they need and start being the person you actually are, even if it means losing them, even if it means losing everything you thought you wanted, because in the end, the only person you really need to fight for is yourself. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.